Hello, everybody, and welcome to Best in Slot. Today, we are going to be talking about everything that you will need to know inside the raid. Now, of course, this isn't going to be comprehensive mechanics and things like that, but this is just intelligent, good play kinds of things that will make you a standout raider. As always, I'm your raid leader tonight, and my name is Wisdom.
And my name is Kimasavix. So, let's start out basic, nice and easy. Be online and be on time. Nothing's worse than when you're supposed to start at 8 and half your raid group's not even there yet. Now, I know we have a guild rule. We start forming at 7:45 and we expect everybody to be there at 8 o'clock. But if you're trying to make an impression or just be the best raider you can, which is what this series is about, being the best, standing out in a good way, not in a bad way, and trying to make your raid group successful, be online, be on time, be that person that's trying to help summon people there. Um, you know, help clear the trash. Don't go AFK every trash. Make sure you're in the right gear. Make sure you have the right spec. Don't get into middle boss fight and go, oh, I'm in my DPS gear. That's why my healing was so bad. Not that we've had people in our guild ever do that before. And you know who I'm talking to. But, contribute positively, invent with, try to be, feel free to talk, invent, and have a good time during trash and contribute positively to the morale of your team. But when it is boss time, if you're new and you have a strong personality, try to stifle it a little bit. Because you don't want to be rude. You don't want to talk over the raid leader or the assistant raid leader or whoever normally does the talking. And if you want to help lead, you can say, "Hey, listen, would you like me to help you call out stuff? I'm really good with this fight." Like you can prove yourself, but doing it the wrong way will just cause a negative reaction. So instead of just saying stuff over the raid leader saying, "Hey, listen, I'm really good. Can I show you that I know this fight and help you call out something?" That'd be a much better way to go about it instead of just being that guy who interrupts everybody.
And if you're brand new, one of the things that I've actually had a great story about joining clowns with this, um, figuring out which voice invent is the one you actually want to listen to is sometimes a bit of a challenge, but taking the time to figure out who's doing a lot of the direction, who might be explaining mechanics, things like that. If you're getting conflicting messages from people, goodness, when I joined clowns, they were so much of the content was on farm that when I was just joining up, I had a few different voices who were saying, no, 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 pull over there. No, pull by yourself. No, I don't need you to taunt. Yes, I want you to taunt. No, don't use your cooldowns now. All different, 7 different messages, some of which just wanted to see the raid group fail, others of which were actually coming from the raid leader. It was a little bit messy.
At the end of the expansion, when there's other ways to do the fights once you outgear it, some people didn't want to do it the real way. Some people wanted to do it the outgeared, cheesy way. And when somebody comes in new to your raid group, it's hard to see if somebody's like busting the group's balls and trying to be like a jokester. Yeah, stand over there, but isn't the fire over there? Or who the raid leader is. So try to remember the raid leader and whoever else is in charge's voice.
Yeah, so that's really going to be what gets you through that, and asking for names and clarification, all that kind of stuff. It's a great place to start. In a similar vein, asking relevant questions is always a good thing. Sometimes it can be intimidating, especially if it's your very first night in a group, when you feel like, oh, they finished explaining the mechanics and now the ready check thing is up, and I never heard him talk about this thing. I don't know if I'm in the nether portal group. I never heard him define who goes in the nether portals, and so I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Hitting not ready is okay. It tells the raid leader something valuable. I mean, I know it's going to blow your minds here, but just because it comes up ready is not the only acceptable option. Stopping and saying, hey, wait a second. I don't know who, at least for Warlords of Draenor, who is dealing with the legendary ring, all right? Which DPS is in charge of that, okay? Who's going to be using that off the pull? I'm a melee. I'm a good candidate for that. Maybe I should be doing it. Well, if they've already got someone else doing it, if you do it instead, you're just going to throw a wrench in things, and it's not going to be what they were expecting, and it's going to be weird and different, and, you might be trying to do your best, but sometimes it's easy to make mistakes. So asking for clarification is always a good thing, and any sensible, respectful raid leader will take the time to explain to you exactly how they want things done and clarify, because every Every single raid leader and most good raiders know that it's better to figure out what you don't understand before you pull rather than 15 pulls later. That's how progression works. We
And
understand.
let's be real, if you're coming, especially if you're coming back into Warlords, you know, yeah, you can watch bosses on all the fights, but it's really hard to like fully understand 13 fights and expect to remember everything. So, you know, be honest and open with your raid leader. Like, hey, listen, I'm just getting back. Can I have some of the more less important jobs? Because your raid leader, like, I know Wisdom, and I mean, I know myself, I don't know about Wisdom. If somebody's coming into our group acting all cocky, I'm gonna want to test them. I'm like, even at the point of maybe too much. So like, I want you to run the ammunition. I want you to get in Kilrog's eyes. Like, if they're coming out like they know everything and they're the best thing since sliced bread, I'm gonna test them to see if they can perform. But if you come in and be like, listen, I'm really good at rotations. I'll understand the fights, but I haven't been here except in videos. Can I have easier jobs? you know, that's okay. Show that you can, do a good rotation and perform DPS for your item level. That's what guilds are, generally looking for to an extent. And then once you get comfortable with the fights, then move forward. And if you don't understand something, please ask. Because if you're in a guild that would, shame you for asking a question, you might not, if you're trying out, especially, that might not be a great home for you. I know we personally would rather be asked instead of wipe, because you didn't get into the sacrifice group in Arc, or you didn't do this or that. Just ask what you're, ask for clarification. It's better than spending 20 minutes wiping.
So you're inside, you figured out what you need to know, and you're staring at the boss. The pull timer is counting down, and I know that you've used your pre-pot. So now what? Well, I cannot stress enough that it is incredibly challenging to be a good raider if you spend all of your time staring at your buttons. Now, we had an entire episode on how to set up your UI so that you have buttons to stare at, but knowing your rotation to the point of unconscious perfection, I mean, that's really what you're striving for. Now, I realize that sounds hard. That sounds scary. And, maybe you think you're at that point right now, and that's great if you are. If that's something that you managed to achieve, good for you. Personally, even though I've been playing a Brewmaster for I don't even know how long at this point, I still make mistakes. I mean, there are still some times when I notice that I do things wrong, or somebody points out, wait, that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. I'm not a perfect player, but I strive to be the best when I can be. And a big part of that is I don't have to think about the buttons I push. It is like I don't even know. This just it happens. All of the buttons happen in here, and I don't do it. It's not in my head anymore, which means I have the time and the space to think about where are people standing, what mechanics are coming up, what needs to be executed, what do I need to be doing to not be making mistakes. Knowing your rotation to the point where you don't have to think about it anymore is the single best thing you can do for yourself. Having a good UI is great. Having a great computer is helpful. Making sure that you know how to interact with other people, do your cooldowns, things like that, that's important. But if you have to stop and stare at your buttons, then you are not staring at the fire that's killing you. And
And
that's what this is about.
I think on the same side of that coin is also really understanding the boss fights when you want to use some of those buttons. Like Gorfiend, you don't want to use your 5-minute cooldowns before you start sucking you in. When do you want to use your AoE moves? When do you want to save your barrage for, like, it might be tempting to use it on 2 mobs, but 10 seconds later there might have spawned 5 imps extra. Like, you want to make sure that you understand not just your rotations without having to think about it, but you want to understand when to use your buttons during that boss fight.
And this is a huge deal on progression, all right? If you are getting into a guild or you've been a part of a guild for a long time that is currently going through any form of progression, not having to think about what buttons you're hitting let you look at and learn the encounter that you're in so much more effectively. Because you can pay attention to the mechanics, the weird things that mobs are doing, who's casting what's putting fire on the floor, where you need to be standing, and that's how you kill bosses. All right, that's what it comes down to. So, figuring out what you should be doing when, I mean, this sounds like a DPS thing, but this actually applies to tanks and healers just as much. Every healer has got something in their toolkit that they should be hitting all the time, regardless of whether or not damage is going out. Now, that might be a really low mana passive heal. That might be something like Wrath that costs you nothing but does just a little bit of damage. Or that might be like if you're a tank, your Devastates, your Tiger Palms, that no cost, no cooldown ability that you just hit until the end of time while you wait for other things to come up.
And even as like a Mistweaver monk, there was times in the fight that I learned I could fist weave without worrying about my group dying just to build up manatees for harder parts of the fight. So learning, paying attention to when the damage is going out and when you can take some time to build up some extra mana so you can burn is very helpful.
And, then this really does get you straight into figuring out, okay, now that I'm not looking at my buttons, I can look at my character. I can figure out where I'm standing and what I'm doing right now. And then the next very simple step from that is I see where I am now. Where do I want to be? All right. So I know that Reap is going to come up in 7 seconds and I have Reap on me. I'm currently stacked with the group. If I drop a Reap here, my tank is going to yell at me. My raid leader is going to be disappointed and I will make a poor impression. I have 7 seconds to find a space to put this thing that does not need to be under anybody else's feet. And then I have to figure out how to get back to where I'm supposed to be. That's the kind of point where I don't have to think about the buttons I'm hitting. You don't want to be thinking about the buttons you're hitting. Because at that point, then you have the ability to look forwards and say, okay, this is where I am now, this is where I want to be, and then after that, where am I going next? It's looking forwards. It's being 3 seconds ahead of the counters on DBM. It's making sure you understand the mechanics before they happen to you. It's using cooldowns preemptively, not reactively, of course, depending on the flavor. And all of these kinds of things that are going to help set you up and set you apart from the players who are so busy staring at their bars and their buttons trying to be number 1 DPS that they neglect the fact that they are dropping Reap in the group and that someone's going to yell at them. So this really does come down to learning the damage patterns of a fight, and it's hard to pay attention to those unless you have the ability to not just be staring at your buttons. All right, so this is figuring out, if I'm on Zol, all right, this is a great fight. I love this fight because it really does set people apart.
I was going to use my example for that one, yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Our first, I believe it was our first kill. We were having trouble on Zol Heroic, and our first kill, I stopped my DPS. I got somebody didn't drop the first purple where they were supposed to, and I got a void on me, and I told everybody not to attack it, and I walked it over to where all the green was. I let it poop on me a little bit away from the green, and I called for the whole group to make sure they get away from it, giving us a nice big area to work with, and ultimately letting us kill the boss. So, that little bit of DPS loss really set the, I can't remember if it was my healer or my hunter, but it won us the game. And, and again, for best it doesn't hurt to tell people that you did that because you don't want your raid leader looking like not noticing that you did that. Maybe he was busy when you had that on and doesn't see you doing it. So make sure you say, hey, listen, I dragged that over and nobody hit this void. I'm dragging it over. Call it out. That's why, Mike can be important. And it saved the fight. So and I was able to do whatever my rotation was while I was doing it.
And that's the kind of thing that you really, people are looking to strive for. And those are the people that you want in your raid team. It's being able to do the things that you're supposed to while doing all of the damage and all of the healing and all of the tanking you're supposed to. It's being 3 or 4 or 5 or 50 seconds ahead of what's going on. It's looking forwards and trying to understand what's going to happen to you in advance. And now, one little aside here. Please make sure that, even on farm, double pot. There's no reason not to. Do your best. This is best in slot. Do your best. I mean, maybe you're just trying to get number 1 on logs or something like that. Doesn't change the fact that just do more damage. There's no reason not to. They're super cheap. And if you're in a guild like ours, we give them to you for free. So do the right thing. But back to talking about mechanics and being on top of things. When you are being able to look forwards just a few seconds, you can start to parcel out your buttons in relationship to what's going on in the fight. And I think Manaroth is a good example of this. Imps, for a good chunk of the fight, they spawn in waves, and ads continue to spawn throughout the bulk of the fight. And being able to figure out when the ads are spawning, how to deal with them effectively, and how that relates to you is really pretty important. You see that, okay, imps are spawning in 3 seconds. Barrage just came off cooldown. I desperately want to hit it because it's the only button I actually know how to hit because I play a hunter. What am I going to do? Well, I could hit the button and do some damage to Manoroth, and that's great. Or I could wait 3 seconds. And that costs me a little bit of DPS. It's 3 seconds longer than I need to wait, and it's a little teensy bit of a DPS loss. But if I wait 3 seconds, I can instantly kill all of the imps as they spawn.
And get
What's
more
the right thing to
DPS
do?
back. That's like
Yeah.
getting it with triple interest. Yeah.
So, what's going to help your raid kill the boss? What's going to help you get through progression? Is it going to be saving it for 3 seconds? Hint, right answer. Or is it going to be being selfish and using your cooldowns as soon as they're up? This is the kind of coordinating thing that a good player does. They figure out, when are the ad waves spawning? How do I line up my cooldowns for this? What will I have up for every set of ads? And how do I deal with that most effectively? And then dealing with it effectively. This is the kind of thing that we're looking for. It's not necessarily who did the most damage at the end of the fight. It's who did the most damage to the right targets. I mean, we have some players who do fantastic single target damage, but regrettably, that is all they are good at. They will sit there and shoot the boss all day and plenty of DPS on the boss. It doesn't change the fact that we will be wiping all night to ads that are not dying. They will be doing all of the damage in the whole world onto the boss. Doesn't count for Jack.
Now,
Right?
Xolarak is a great example, but I'm going to use the ghosts on Sakrathar, for example. When we call for them to be killed, you know, when we wiped, we pull up meters on damage on ghosts. Yeah, it takes a couple seconds for us as a hunter to get over there, whoever the class, and yeah, okay, I'll lose my damage buff sometimes, but I'm killing the ghosts that are wiping us. So when you post damage meters, we post it for the ghost when we were wiping, because that's why we were wiping, and you could see who's doing their job and who's not. You could be number one DPS, but if you're not DPSing what you need to, it doesn't matter. And on the same token, if you're cheesing your DPS and using your cooldowns to get better AoE damage on a spot that you don't need it just to cheese it, you're not doing your guild any favors.
I
So,
yeah. I
and a
will be the
good raid
first
leader
raid
will
leader.
pick that out. Yeah.
Be the first raid leader to drop our number one DPS if it is all on the wrong target. I don't care how great your damage is, unless it's where it's supposed to be. It's not. It's just not the right place to be doing it. So, learning to maybe sacrifice just a little bit of your own DPS to help your group get the kill, figuring out how to line up your cooldowns, look ahead, and really all of this builds on top of making sure you know your rotation inside and out. It's not having to think about it. Now, for some people, they have complex rotations, maybe having an add on or even a few weak auras to help you figure out what buttons you need to be hitting and when. That if that's what you need to do, then please, by all means, do it. Figure out what works for you. More about that in the previous UI episode.
And going into Legion, Blizzard has made a statement saying that they are trying to make it so players look at their bars less. Like Death Knights are taking away all the runes and making it one kind of rune. And they're doing similar things with other classes. They don't want us to be focusing on our bars. They want us to see what's going on around. But no matter what you have, you still need to see what's going on around no matter what they give you. So take time, learn your rotation, learn your spec. It'll make your raid much more enjoyable for you as well.
Yeah. Now, there are also some fights that have mechanics that are better suited to certain classes. Runes on Cormrock come to mind. Hunters are phenomenal at that, especially pushing them where they need to be, being able to use deterrence on those when you want to, and then disengaging around the room so that it's nice and easy to get where you need to be. If you happen to be a hunter, even if it's your first night in there, if you understand the mechanics well enough to believe you can execute them, volunteering for that is something that I really do look for and that I think that a lot of good raid leaders expect from their players. Because if I know that you're good at that, well, I'm going to assign you to do it. But if you step up and say, hey, I will do this voluntarily, it sets you apart. Similarly, if you know that you're going to be very good at particular phases or particular encounters, if you do very well downstairs on Archimond and you want to be there, volunteer for it. That makes a difference. Right? These are the kind of things that are important. And on top of that, if you know that a particular spec is better suited for a fight, like let's say Archimond, it's a high movement fight. Arcane doesn't. Arcane does brilliant single target damage, but it's not super great on movement fights. If movement is problematic for you and you don't do good damage as Arcane, I don't care how much you hate Frost. Switch. It's that simple. So, as we're getting into Legion, one of the things that we're seeing is that everybody will have access to every single spec that they could play. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on players to be able to perform well in whatever spec is best for the fight. Now, maybe your gear doesn't enable you to have enough crit to play fire effectively or something like that. But if you can relatively easily switch between specs and your gear enables you to do so, being able to play those specializations effectively is extremely important. All right, it's not just changing particular talents. I mean, I'm a tank. It's not like I have two tank specs I can switch between, but I swap my talents depending on the fight, depending on what we need. And other players who, maybe are switching between marksman and beast mastery, things like that, assuming again that the numbers allow this. Switching to whatever is better for a particular encounter is important, and not just switching and saying, "Oh no, I was BM, I was in the right spec." Actually doing what you're supposed to and playing it effectively, that's the kind of thing that we're looking for here. So, you want to be able to play your chosen specialization effectively, have that unconscious rotation that lets you look forward in the fight, see what you need to be doing and where you need to be standing, how you need to be reacting to things, and then being able to run after that same sort of unconscious rotation for all of the specializations that will be relevant for you to be able to play for given encounters. Do those things, and head and shoulders you will stand apart from other people, especially in a heroic raiding guild. I mean, it's a little bit of a different story when you step into Mythic, but it doesn't change the fact that it still makes you a phenomenally unique raider in a lot of circumstances.
And on side note too, communicate with your loot master, your officer team, and be like, listen, and I'm just making this up. Right now, I have gear for Arcane, which is great for single target. If nobody needs gear that's crit mastery, I would like to go Fire, which is multi target, which would be useful in these next 3 fights that are coming up that are progression. So let them know, hey, listen, I don't want to take first priority, but if somebody doesn't need it or if it's not big, I would like this so I can perform better in these fights. Communicate. Not every raid leader, loot master, is going to know what's best for every single spec. It's just not. It's not going to happen. So communicate with them when you however you do your loot. Post why you want it, so they understand that you're trying to be the best in every single fight.
All right, well, I think our bottom line here is look for having that rotation down, right? Get it down, and then that's going to let you learn the game in a whole different way, and it's going to get you where you need to be to do those fights correctly, do them properly, and help your raid and your raid team. So thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, please throw us a like, comment, subscribe. Every little bit helps us out. If you like the awesome art all around us, especially this guy's awesome. Check out our artist link down in the description. She does great work. As always, I have been Wisdom.
And this has been Kemosabics. Please let us know in the comment section below. Tell us about a time that you sacrificed your own DPS to kill a progression boss for your team, and give us a cool story. And as always, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.